Good morning. Thanks very much for joining us. It's coming up on a year since attorney Tanisha Sullivan became the newest president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP. We had her on right after she took that job, and we're delighted to have her back in the studio with us this morning for kind of an update. Welcome, Tanisha.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Good to see you again. So it's been 8 days now since that very busy day on Boston Common with the rally or whatever it was and the massive counter-protest. Were you happy with the way that went, not just physically the way the day unfolded, but sort of what the takeaway is from it for your organization and the general public?
Right. I definitely believe that what we saw on Saturday was hopefully a catalyst for what is to come, not only in the city of Boston, but across the Commonwealth. I was certainly encouraged by the fact that the counter-protests that we saw were really led by ordinary citizens. What we saw, particularly with the march that started in Roxbury and headed to the Common, was a march that was a movement, really, that was led by a woman from Roxbury, Monica Cannon, and what we saw was that she was concerned about what we were hearing out of Charlottesville and said not here in the city of Boston, and really helped to lead nearly 40,000 in the counter-protests.
Well, I watched the video of Monica Cannon's press conference the day before the march, and in addition to concerns about, white supremacy and neo-Nazis marching and all of that, what happened in Charlottesville, she was also stressing her interest in talking about income inequality. And I'm not hearing a whole lot of discussion about that flowing out of this or in general. Am I just missing it, or is it not happening?
It's not that you're missing it, John. I do think for Monica and for many of us who participated in the march on Saturday, it was important to note that certainly this is August 19th is a day that we are taking a stand as a city to address what was expected to be a white supremacist rally, but that if you're concerned about racism in our city, if you're concerned about supremacy in our city, then we also need to be mindful of the systems and some of the issues that exist here in the city that are personifying racism in our day-to-day. So whether it's income inequality, particularly in the Roxbury area, what we see is vast income inequality between white families and black families and Latino families, or it's within our education system where we see persistent racial achievement and opportunity gaps, or even in our criminal justice system, yes, even here in the city of Boston.
We have to take a break in a moment, but there were some complaints voiced after the rally about the way the police handled an admittedly difficult and tense situation. Complaints, free speech complaints, that in the end access was so severely limited to the rally that almost no one could hear what it was they had to say, and the police commissioner actually said, well, that's a good thing. I don't want people to hear what they had to say. Kind of an unfortunate remark. And also some concerns about the way police interacted with the counter-protesters. Do you share those concerns?
So I do believe that the city and the police commissioner and Chief Gross really made an effort to make sure that leading up to Saturday and through Saturday, that public safety was a priority. And so I appreciate the work that was done on the front end to help ensure that Boston was not a repeat of Charlottesville to the degree that we all saw and many of us were horrified by. That being said, as part of those preparations, there were safety precautions put into place in anticipation of this so-called free speech rally actually drawing a lot of people, and it didn't. And so what we saw was a lot of open space that went unused, fortunately. And from my perspective, that sent a very good message that people had the opportunity to espouse whatever beliefs they wanted to espouse, but that, quite frankly, not too many people were interested in hearing it.
All right, let's take our break, and we'll continue our conversation in a moment. with the president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP, Tanisha Sullivan. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking with Tanisha Sullivan, president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP. And Tanisha, a moment ago, we were talking about issues of importance in communities of color here, particularly lower-income communities, and educational achievement, or the lack of it, is certainly right at the top of the list. Just the other day, the Boston Teachers Union in the city cut a deal on a new 2-year contract. It's already almost half over with, but the head of the Boston Municipal Research Bureau, kind of a watchdog agency, Sam Tyler, called the deal disappointing. He said, quote, "It doesn't address meaningful education reform that's necessary to improve student achievement," end quote, and went on to cite ability to fire underperforming teachers, and I would add another one, length of class day. Do you agree with that critique?
Well, I think one of the challenges that the Boston Public Schools system has had, not just this year, not just in the past 5 years, but really for the past 10 years at least, is its ability to really address racial achievement and opportunity gaps. This is not a question of whether our young people are capable. This is really an issue about the way in which our district is educating our young people, or attempting to educate our young people, is simply not working. And we need to do something about that. And so whether, I am concerned that the contract is an interim one, if you will. As you noted, it's already at its midpoint before it even starts. But what I'm even more concerned about is whether the district has the capacity to really put in place the policy changes and the curriculum changes that are necessary for our young people to access the quality education they need in order to prepare them for success beyond high school. I think that the district has made some attempts with its achievement and opportunity gap work, but again, those are attempts. It is high time for us to see some meaningful progress when it comes to the education of our young people. The other piece I want to say, and you know, I have to be fair, this also extends to other schools within the city of Boston. Even when we talk about charter schools, I think charter schools have done a good job, generally speaking, with the education of our young people. However, there are some very real concerns there as well when it comes to pervasive opportunity gaps, when we talk about disciplinary practices, for example. So net, yes, I do think it is good that there is some closure to this contract, but I do also believe that we have a long way to go when it comes to actually providing young people with the type of education they deserve.
One last quick thing I want to squeeze in here. We do have a mayoral election this fall. The preliminary is coming up later in September. It's likely, all due respect to, there are 4 candidates, but it's likely that a person of color, City Councilor Tito Jackson, will make the runoff against Marty Walsh, the incumbent. It'll be the first time in some years we've had a person of color in the final. Does your branch of the NAACP expect to endorse?
So the NAACP Boston branch does not endorse specific candidates for any of our elected positions. However, we certainly are paying close attention to not only what is being said during this campaign season, but also what each of the candidates has done relative to issues of race here in the city of Boston. Again, whether we're talking about income inequality, education, or policing and criminal justice reform, we are paying very close attention to what has been done by each of the candidates in the past to help us in formulating kind of where we believe the city should go going forward.
Any quick observations based on what you've been seeing?
I think we have a lot of work to do across the board. I think all of both the leading candidates have done some good work, each of them in this space, but there's a lot more work to be done.
We'll look forward to having you back again soon. We've got a lot more to talk about, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Tanisha Sullivan, the president of the Boston chapter of the NAACP. That's it for me. Now it's back over to my colleagues for more WBZ News.